Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Lily if you don't know me, and if you do know me, well, welcome back. So this video today is an Onyx Storm discussion video, which I'm very excited to make because I finished Onyx Storm 4 days ago. When I first finished, I stared at the wall for about 20 minutes just thinking, what the heck have I just finished? And every day since, I've now been revisiting different parts of the book, trying to unpack what we read and learned, and I thought I would do a discussion video with some of the biggest points of this book, which honestly this video is probably going to have to be in multiple parts because there is so much to unpack. But to start with, let's just get into it. Of course, with a video like this, unpacking the entirety of Onyx Storm, I do need to do a formal spoiler warning. So here is your warning. If you haven't finished the book yet, please save this video and come watch it again later when you have finished, because most of this video is going to contain spoilers for the entire book and I don't want to ruin it for you. So from here on out, the video is going to contain spoilers. Let's get into the video. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this video is Violet's second signet. Oh my gosh, the reason I reacted the way I did, I don't know if you've seen the video on TikTok or not, is because I feel like we've been trying to understand what her second signet is for so long and it just made sense. She is an intrinsic and she is a dream walker. When I tell you I read that, I was like, of course she is. Of course all those dreams, literally an iron flame, weren't hers. Like, what? I feel like we knew this. Anyway, I'm not gonna focus on the fact that it was so obvious. We're gonna unpack what it looks like. So Violet is a type of intrinsic, and she is a dream walker. What do we know about dream walking so far? Not an awful lot, except for the fact that it's arguably more powerful than Xaden's intention reading form of intrinsic, because she can enter someone's unconscious mind without them being able to block, which I think is interesting. A question that I have is, can she do that while she's awake, or does she also need to be asleep? And I think that we will learn to understand her second signet more in the next book as she learns it, because clearly she doesn't know a lot either. The only other information we really know about being an intrinsic is that they are too powerful to let them live. That's kind of the motto. If someone's an intrinsic, if they don't end up going insane, they get killed because their signet is way too powerful. So I wonder how Violet will be able to keep this a secret, and clearly it doesn't matter about Xaden's intrinsic abilities because he's now Venom and he is off on his own mission. So another thing I wanted to talk about with regard to Violet's signets is actually about her first signet. We know that she wields lightning. Something that I keep reminding people is that her first signet isn't lightning. It's raw, pure power expressed as lightning. And I've made lots of videos saying that we haven't even seen the whole extent of her first signet, which I think is finally starting to happen, because so many times in Iron Flame when she wields lightning, it's then followed by thunder. And I think that is showing the progression of her signet. At first it was lightning, now she has a conduit and she can control it. And now, whenever there's lightning, there's also thunder. So I think her first signet is starting to grow, and I think that will happen in the next books too. Let's keep going on signets. The marked ones have second signets. When I tell you, my jaw dropped in chapter 10 when Garrick appeared, and then when they unpack, so you have second signets. I literally was in disbelief. That is so incredible. So what do we know about second signets for the marked ones? What we know at the moment is what Xaden says, which is our dragons came looking for us. They knew what they were doing. The marked ones have a mark because they were kids from the rebellious adults in the previous rebellion. So my understanding of what was said in Onyx Storm was that it's not the mark itself that gives them a second signet. It's the mark that makes dragons bond to them when they had previously bonded to one of their ancestors. Does that make sense? So if you've got a kid from one of the children from the rebellion, they have a mark. The dragon that bonded to them had bonded to one of their grandparents, and I think that's how it works. I don't think that the mark itself is what gives them the signet. I think it's that the dragons saw out the marked ones, knowing that they would then give them two signets, which I think is really interesting because it kind of shows this alliance, this unsaid alliance between the marked ones and the dragons, and that the dragons are aligning with the rebellion. I think that's how I've understood it, and I'd be interested to see what you guys think, but that's kind of how I interpreted what was said. And it also says that not every marked one gets a second signet, which would make sense because not all the dragons had bonded with ancestors of the marked ones, you know? So let's talk about Garrick. His first signet is air wielding, which we know from the previous books, and his second signet is distance wielding, and I've already explained how I lost my mind when I figured this out. But what do we know about distance wielding so far? Not an awful lot. All we know is that it is very powerful, and there hasn't been one in centuries. Very similar to a lightning wielder and shadow wielder and all of the other very important and strong signets. One thing I do want to note that I'm going to touch on later is that when Garrick was distance wielding Imogen and Quinn away after Quinn had been killed, as he was distance wielding, Imogen notes that the stones underneath of him lost their colour. And I'm going to touch back on that soon. But at the moment, we don't know a lot about his distance wielding, what the extent of it is. We just know he is a distance wielder and he is very powerful. Let's talk about Imogen's second signet. We know that she has a memory erasing ability, and her second signet, drumroll please, is being able to manipulate either earth, rocks, stones, other earthly elements. And we know this because at the end of the book, before Quinn passes away, Imogen's trying to make her way over there. Her and Dane are fighting a distance wielder. She grabs Dane's shield, shoves it in the ground. The shield turns to stone. And then Dane says, we're going to talk about whatever the F that was later. She turned a metal shield with a leather strap into solid stone. Something, that's her signet. It has to be, otherwise I don't know how it's explained. But it'll be interesting to uncover that later. I did a little bit of research in both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame just then. There's no mention of a rock bender, earth bender, maybe a transfiguration of some sort. We don't know that signet yet, so I think it's a new one. But I just found that very interesting. And going back to it, it's so obvious that, I mean, it could have been Dane, but it's her. It's her. And then obviously Dane says we're going to talk about that later, so we know it's about her. One of the other marked ones that I wanted to talk about was Bodhi. We don't know what his second signet is, and the only quote that we have is when Violet asks him and he goes, I don't have one, full stop. Just like Xaden, full stop. Some people on TikTok are seeming to think that actually he's hinting that he's an intrinsic because he says, I don't have one, just like Xaden. Which, if the marked ones have second signets, he would know Xaden has a second signet. So people are thinking maybe he's some sort of intrinsic. I think it would be interesting if we had this variety of different intrinsics, because, you know, we've got Dreamwalker, Intention Reader, we've got all these different types, so maybe Bodhi could be, unsure. Let me know if you think you have an idea in the comments. Right, because we've been talking about Imogen, Garrick, Bodhi, Xaden, Violet, let's talk about who turns venom at the end of Onyx Storm. Is it Garrick? Is it Bodhi? Some people are even saying Dane. I personally think it's Garrick. So Garrick was paired with Xaden for the end battle. Bodhi went off with Violet. So it's one of the reasons I think they were already paired together. Also, Garrick and Xaden are very, very close. And at the end, Xaden goes, after you've seen me struggle for 6 months, why would you make the same decision as me? And I think Garrick has been so close to Xaden this whole time that makes sense saying that to him. And going back to that thing I said before, is when he was distance wielding away with Imogen and Quinn, the stones under him lost their colour. And after he'd returned them, Imogen and Quinn, while he was leaving, Imogen was like, where are you going? And he said that he could barely walk, and so he needs to go find magic somehow, or power somehow. Which, to me, that's kind of a red flag of he's out of power and he's still going to fight. What's he gonna do? So that's kind of my opinion. I think it's Garrick. Other people think it's Bodhi because it would make sense why Xaden had to marry Violet in order to ensure that there was an heir for Terrandor, which kind of suggests, is she pregnant? I'll touch on that another time. But it could be Bodhi that was with him. I personally don't think so. It's important to mention that some people do think that it actually might be Dane that turned venom because he was quite rebellious during this book. I don't think that's the case. I don't think he would have been with like Xaden. Xaden wouldn't have said what he said at the end if it was Dane, because he's had that whole jealousy thing throughout the whole book. Yeah, I don't personally think it's Dane, but yeah, I'm open to it if it is. Let's talk about Dune, Malik, the gods, the priestesses, and the temples. In this book, there was a lot of information, and for me to actually, I think, comprehend what was even said, I do need to do a reread. But here are some of like the main things that I kind of picked up on about the gods, because I think they're a whole lot more important than we initially thought they would be. So what we do know is that Dune is the goddess of strength and war, and Malik is the god of death. So we know that Violet was dedicated as a child to the god of Dune, and that it wasn't successful, even though this practice was outlawed 200 years ago. And actually in chapter 31, a priestess goes on to say that her dedication wasn't completed, but it's not too late for Dune to accept her. And at the end of the book, when Violet's protecting the priestesses in the temple, Violet says Dune isn't going to pick up arms and help us, and a priestess says, no, she sent you. So I think that Violet has a lot more to do with the gods than we first initially anticipated, especially with finding out that she was somewhat dedicated. Why was it outlawed? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to reread and see if anything else sticks out. So an important thing in this series is the gods, and I think we're starting to understand that a lot more. We know a lot about Dune, but I think Malik, the god of death, is very important, because when Violet is hallucinating Liam in Iron Flame when she's being tortured, she's like, you're a hallucination. And Liam says, or I was sent by Malik. And she said Malik doesn't do anyone favors, he doesn't show any kindness, and he doesn't let souls wander. And Liam says, I'm not wandering, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And I saw something on TikTok that talks about this, and I'll try to link them down below, essentially saying like, what if Liam was actually sent by Malik? And that kind of introduces, was Violet not dedicated to Doom? Was she dedicated to Malik? Was she dedicated to all of the gods? I don't know. This is all the information we have at the moment. And as I said before, I am not even beginning to understand what actually happened in Onyx Storm because I read it so quickly and there's so much information in it. So until I do a reread, I think, until lots of people do rereads, it's hard to fully understand, but I think that's some of the information that stuck out to me. Another plot twist we need to talk about is Xaden's mother. I went feral in this moment with Mum. I was like, ah! Oh my gosh. I think a lot of us kind of suspected that we knew she wasn't dead. It was very intentional. Rebecca never said she was dead. So I think it was really cool when his mum was there. It was like, okay, you know, we understood what she was like putting down. That was good. So what we do know is that he has two brothers, which I think will come back into play later on. I think it's interesting she didn't know that her husband was trying to poison Xaden. I think there might be a good character redemption arc, and I do kind of feel a bit of sympathy for her. However, I also am like, because she left Xaden when he was so young. I think that relationship hopefully might grow a bit more in the next coming books, but at the moment we don't know an awful lot. So the final thing I want to mention in this video, because I can't, like, there is so much that we could talk about, the ending. I'm gonna try just talk about one thing in the ending because I haven't even comprehended what happened because it all just was so amazing. Anyway, the marriage and the letter. So obviously Violet and Xaden got married. Imogen wiped her memory, so she has no memory of it. But the letter that Xaden left, don't look for me, it's yours now. Something that I saw someone point out was that Xaden always refers to Tyrrendor as she. So what is he referring to when it says it's yours now? Someone else on TikTok, I'm going to try, I think it was just a comment. Someone said Violet is essentially, could be a Horcrux. And by marrying Xaden, she's preserved a piece of his soul. Because we know at the end of Onyx Storm, when Xaden is almost fully turned venom, he sends out his Onyx Storm in order to save Violet. She says the words, I love you. And it's from that moment that he holds onto that. Then he starts talking to Sigale, Tarn, pulling in that favor from the High Priestess. And I think it is that moment, that I love you, that saves him. When it says in Fourth Wing Iron Flame early in Onyx Storm that it's not, the venom don't just lose their soul straight away. They lose it piece by piece. And I think that marriage might have acted like a Horcrux and preserved that one last piece of him. So that kind of brings me to the end of the video. It doesn't even touch the surface of what was incredible about Onyx Storm. What is new? I need to do a reread in order to understand what the heck actually happened, but these were some of my first thoughts, reactions, things that stuck out to me. There's also heaps of really cute I love you quotes that I'm just like, Xaden is phenomenal, and I can't wait to see the future books. We have to wait 2 years, don't even talk to me about that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any other theories, if you have any other thoughts, I would love to hear them, so please put them in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to be able to make some more once we have new revelations, because I'm going to reread it, and honestly there's so much to understand. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope I can see you again next time. Bye!